Hey everyone, I'm Majiin and welcome in to World Tour Weekly, your one-stop shop for all competitive Flesh and Blood news. This last weekend, ProQuest Yokohama season starts its wind down as we approach the final week of events, and Calling Sydney shows us where the metagame is headed as we approach the World Championship. Let's get into it. Alright, let's take a second to talk about how things have been going in the relevant World Championship formats before getting to the data of this last weekend. We just had a banned and restricted announcement that looked to lower the power of Runeblade in the Living Legend format before Worlds. Before this change, both Chain and Viserai were kind of running over the format. Viserai was able to play an incredibly powerful hybrid strategy using Bloodsheath Skeleta, and Chain dominated a lot of the other decks in the format using the powerful Runegate cards. The immediate reaction from the announcement was that Chain was going to be hit very hard, while Viserai got hit medium hard, and Starvo was going to rise up to fill the power vacuum in the format. But we'll see how it played out in a second. On the Classic Constructed side, not a ton has changed in the past few weeks. Verdant, Syndra, and Gravy Bones are all still considered top 3 decks, with a lot of other viable decks behind them. Kano got a lot of Living Legend points in the prior ProQuest weekend, and it looks like he might hit Living Legend before Worlds. Now, with all that set up, let's get into it in today's Metagame Minute. I'm going to start off with the ProQuest data first, where Syndra solidly held the first place spot with a total of 11 wins. That's 3 more than Verdant's in second place. After that, Kasai, Florian, and KO Armed and Dangerous have the most wins, which is very surprising to me considering they all managed to perform better than Gravy Bones, an established top deck. Wizard haters will be sad to notice that Kano only won 2 events for week 5, leaving him currently at 980 Living Legend points. This puts him likely out of reach of rotating before Worlds unless he has incredible results this weekend or wins one of the 2 remaining Battle Hardens before the tournament. On the Living Legend side of things, Starvo and Viserai won 2 events each, while Dash.io and Zen only won 1. This is pretty dramatically different from last week, where Chain won fully half of the events, and shows that the BNR was successful at bringing down the power level of at least one of the top Runeblades. Now let's pivot over to Calling Sydney, which had exactly what you would expect in the most represented slots. Our old friends, Verdant, Syndra, and Gravy Bones. Acilio taking the 4th most popular spot is pretty neat, but if you continue to move down the list, you will get some even bigger surprises. First off, the event had 7 Puffins. This deck has definitely been showing up more and more and got a good boost to power recently from the newly released Backspin Thrust. Move down to the next row and you'll see that Florian had less players in this calling than he had ProQuest wins this week. I'm not really sure what to make of that information, but it's definitely pretty striking to me. After that, you'll see that all 4 Super Slam heroes are in attendance, shout out to the one of Tough Nut, and there were 3 copies of Arachne Huntsman. It's always cool to see older, less standard heroes get some love. When we shift over to the day 2 conversion rates, you'll see that our big 3 didn't do particularly well. Instead, Prism, Victor, and Arachne Marionette all had much better conversion rates. I wanted to point out that we also had a copy of Lyeth make it to day 2, but we're going to talk a bit more about that deck later. While Syndra's conversion rate into day 2 wasn't anything particularly special, she absolutely smashed her way through the rest of the tournament, putting 5 copies into the top 8. Filling out the rest of the bracket are 2 Verdances and 1 Prism. Syndra has obviously been performing pretty well for the entirety of the season, but I think this event might silence any remaining non-believers. I have to imagine that all Worlds competitors will have Syndra in the forefront of their minds when choosing the decks that they bring to the tournament. This wasn't the only event in Sydney though. There was also a Battle Harden showcasing the Living Legend format where the top 8 bracket was 2 copies of Starvo, 1 Aurora, 1 Zen, 3 Viserai, and 1 Dromai. From both this Battle Hardened and the ProQuest results, it seems like Chain was hit very hard by the recent Dirge restriction, while Viserai is still a top 2 deck in the format. That's enough about the meta though, let's talk champions in today's weekend winners. Obviously, our first winner of the weekend is Syndra, who crushed all the other heroes. Jokes aside, our first champion of the weekend is Gordon Coco, who took down Calling Sydney on, you guessed it, Syndra Drakai Retribution. Still in Sydney, but this time at the Living Legend Battle Hardened, Michael Fang showed that Viserai is still a powerhouse hero in the format, even after the BNR. Over at Battle Hardened Tacoma, Verdant reigned supreme as Lucas Ang took her to a first place finish. Congratulations once again to our weekend winners. I also wanted to give a very quick update on the Player of the Year race, where Brody Spurlock is still in first place, but only by 11 points now. The battle for third place is also ramping up, with both Michael Fang and Michael Hamilton tied at exactly 91 points. Also, over in the Asia Pacific region, all the top 5 competitors are within 6 points of each other. I really just can't wait for Worlds to see how it's all going to play out. It seems like every single point is going to matter. I also can't wait for Worlds so I can play in it. Lots of things to be excited about, I guess. Speaking of things to be excited about, I mentioned that a Lyeth player did pretty well in the calling, and we were fortunate enough to see the deck do some very powerful things in the feature match. Let's take a look.
Yeah, incredible stuff. But you want to talk about some craziness here. Oliver Berry is about to have he's all in. 4 auras popped, draw a card, so he has 4 cards in hand, and one of those cards, Hayden, tear asunder.
Yeah, interesting. Peace of mind in all his hand as well. So maybe battling a little bit between the defensive cards and the offensive cards.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 3 might created off the action here.
Yeah. And now we'll see. Yeah, it's just going to pitch. Ooh. Tear asunder.
Yeah. This is huge. There's another to cut a long story short. This is massive.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad he's doing the math. So this is 13 dominate coming through.
Dominate.
On discard everything. Just get rid of it all. You don't get to play the game right now. So yeah, so 13 dominate, discard your hand, and also you've got, like, technically, yeah, Terra Sunder says discard 2 cards, but it's all gone.
Yeah.
But here we go. This is one of
short.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have been incredibly impressed with the new 3-power Guardian Crush attacks, especially in the Lyeth deck. It's also cool to see a hero that actually has 5 intellect, and I hope we see a lot more of him soon. Okay, this is it. The last weekend before the World Championship on the 13th. We have 2 more Battle Hardens this weekend before the tournament. One in Rochester and one in Edinburgh. Both of them are going to be the classic constructed format. After that, we are off to the races. There are still a couple questions that I'm going to be watching the weekend's events closely to see if I can answer. Number 1. Is Prism going to continue rising in play rate and win rate? She did very well at the recent calling and seems to have a pretty good matchup into all 3 of the top heroes. The issue is that it seems pretty simple for Syndra to flip the matchup in her favor by adding a few big poppers. Not only that, but brutes like KO and Reinhard do still exist and can make life pretty difficult for any Phantasm enjoyers. Alright, number 2. Where were the gravy bones? The calling and this weekend's ProQuest results didn't look particularly good for our resident Necromancer. I'm willing to consider that he maybe just had an off week, but I'm going to be watching closely this weekend to see if players are moving away from him. And number 3, I want to find out if Viserai is still the best deck in the Living Legend format. The results certainly seem to point to this possibility, but there are a lot of different builds floating around and things have changed a bit since the BNR. We've also seen a couple of other cool decks pop up at these Living Legend events like Dromai and Marlin. So I'm going to be watching these to see if they have a surge in play rate as well. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Remember that this is the last weekend to try to qualify for Pro Tour Yokohama through the ProQuest season. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'm Majiin, and I'll see you next time on World Tour Weekly.